GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Welcome, everyone. This is Sleazy. We're going to have a little bit of a departure from our normal episode. So Fatman's off in Chicagoland, dealing with some fun situations. So that's left me kind of on my own tonight, but I did end up going to a couple of really cool shows over the past week. So we're going to talk about those real quick, and then we're actually going to go back into the archives and listen to a very, very old episode, specifically regarding 2CW, because that's what I'm going to be talking about today on The Wrestling Show. Welcome, everyone, to another wonderful episode. So, as I said before, last week has been a really great week for wrestling in the upstate New York area. Specifically, we had AEW come to town for one night only on Wednesday. And then, of course, we had a 2-night reunion event for 2CW, Square Circle Wrestling. Square Circle Wrestling is very important to us here. They closed down about 5-6 years ago, and they decided to run a very, very rare reunion show. And they put it off because of the pandemic. But finally they did it on Friday, and we're going to talk about that tonight, as well as the AEW show. Now, keep in mind, I'm not going to go through the card 100%. I'm basically just going to go through the actual main Dynamite card, and then give you my thoughts and feelings about the 2CW event. Now, for people who didn't watch AEW's Dynamite this past week, it was a very interesting show. It was headlined by Sammy Guevara versus Miro, but it also had I believe was one of the first matches, if it's not the first match, for Adam Cole. So it's going to be a really interesting show to actually review. So let's get right into it. So once again, we start off the show with CM Punk coming out, working the crowd up. Now, keep in mind, this is Rochester, New York, home of the late Brody Lee. So, of course, all night, the crowd was hot. The crowd was chanting for Brody. My personal opinion is that it was just super, super exciting, super loud there. Apparently, according to our rest of our wrestling show staff, it didn't come across as well on TV. But I can tell you from personal experience, it was loud. Everybody was on top of everything. It was a very enjoyable show as a whole. But when CM Punk came out, it was, once again, bedlam from moment one, and it never really stopped, really. Now, keep in mind that from the piece of Dynamite, there was AEW Dark Elevation, which is the YouTube show. That featured a ton of matches. There was about an hour and quarter's worth of matches that were taped beforehand, including many local talent. Of course, Colin Delaney and Cheech were on it. There were a couple of other major talent that were on the show that, if you know the local area, you know them. Including the Batteria of all people. But once we got to 8 o'clock, the live show started, and it started with a bang with Jungle Boy versus Adam Cole. Cole beats Jungle Boy after a nice low blow, followed by, I guess he's calling it the boom, but basically the last shot. I thought it was a really great match to open. I would give it maybe 3.5 stars. Really nice. My only concern about it is having Cole, use an underhanded tactic, but in the grand scheme of things, he's a heel, so whatever. Danielson comes out after the Elite come out and jaw Jack and say they're the best. Basically, after that, they set up a match for AEW's Rampage, which was taped later on. The promo was fine, whatever. It was to get everybody out for a nice promo. Then we had the tag match, Cody Rhodes and Lee Johnson versus Dante Martin and Matt Sydal. This was mainly to put over Cody Rhodes turning heel. You get the fucking greatest promo from Arn Anderson in the world with the whole Glock gimmick. That's hilarious. It came off well live as well as it did on camera. And the man's going to make a shit ton of money on t-shirts. No shit. Then you had the 6-man with Eddie Kingston, John Moxley, and Darby Allin versus Bear Country and Anthony Green. I will say this. That one was kind of more of I don't want to say a filler match, but definitely it was to get these people out in front of a very hot crowd with, Moxley and Kingston. Obviously, Kingston's a former Chikara guy, out there to, pay some respects to Brody. But it was a throwaway 6-man. Obviously, everyone came here to cheer for Brody, to cheer for the Dark Order, and we got it with the huge, holy shit, 16-man tag match. Okay, so to be fair, I was part of one of the largest tag matches in Excite Wrestling history, and there were 13 people in it. Having 16 people in a match like this just makes a mess really, really quickly. I understand what they were doing. I understand why they did it the way they did it, but in the same breath, it was just too many people. It got to the point where the people on the ring were actually covering half the matchup. But of course, it was meant for Brody Jr. and Amanda to come out and do a whole thing and have Uno, push the entire Dark Order storyline along. It was a great moment, and of course, once again, it's there to pay tribute to Brody. Then you got Tay Conti and Anna Jay versus Penelope Ford and the Bunny, who is known outside of here as Cherry Bomb. Before that, you had this really caustic promo from Dan Lambert. I think it's interesting what they're doing with Scorpio Sky and Paige, but I didn't understand how they're going to work this into other tag matches, because right now it's basically Lucha Brothers are on top. Are you going to basically say that the Young Bucks aren't really going to challenge for anything for a while? Almost certainly not. It just seems like that this tag team's been thrown together just so that they could take some falls for some up-and-coming babyface teams that are planning on challenging for the title. So I don't understand it, but you never know where things go, especially in this company, because you never know who they think is going to be next in line, so to speak. As for the actual tag match, it was an okay match for a house show. And honestly, it was meant to get these 4 ladies out there. They're for the women's division. This match was good. In terms of what they're planning on doing with the women's division outside of obviously the top title, I have no idea. Are they going to do tag titles? I don't know. Are they going to do a mid-card title like rumored? I don't know either. But for the time being, having these tag matches is a great way to get a lot of these women some ring time, and most importantly, out in front of crowds to get them, over a little bit more. Then you had this promo with MJF and Wardlow, and full disclosure, I do love MJF. I think he's a really great heel. When he first started, I actually believed he was too heelish. He was actually too over the top. I think he's pulled it back just enough to be absolutely perfect. And I do agree with everyone on the show that says that he is AEW's best heel. And that's without a doubt. I agree with that. And this feud is going to be great when this is all said and done. Then you had the main event, TNT Championship match, Sammy Guevara versus Miro. The match was great. Okay, it was not like blow off your socks 5-star match quality, but it was a great moment. Sammy winning the title was kind of shocking, but it was also semi-expected, mainly because of how they booked the show and how they booked the TNT title, and alluding to the fact that, it's Brody's title effectively. So, I mean, the irony of having it go on to Guevara at this moment, where this was also the same place where Brody was supposed to debut, and, and the TNT title has that history with Brody. So there was a lot of moving parts in this match. The surprising thing, though, I believe, was why would they do the title switch in the first place? Miro was doing a great job. This is his first loss in AEW history. So that was kind of surprising that they broke the streak with him, and also more importantly broke it. And with all due respect to Sammy Guevara, and I really do mean this, he doesn't seem like even mid-card material. I think the man is very good at what he does, but I don't see him as a big single star. And I know that sounds strange, but I don't see him as anything more than a supporting character in a tag team, because I think he's a great, hot tag person. But that being said, obviously AEW sees a lot in him. That's why they gave him the title. Obviously, that's why they did the whole title switch here. All in all, it was a decent weekly taping show. This was not pay-per-view quality, and nor should it be, because it's a weekly. My beautiful, lovely wife was with me throughout the entire show. She enjoyed it. She enjoyed the Elevation tapings. Unfortunately, we did not get through the entirety of Rampage, mainly because it got to be about 11:30, 12 o'clock by the time they even got started with the tapings, or by the time they finished with the tapings. And by then we were just out. But the actual Rampage show was pretty decent. We did end up watching Bryan Danielson and Nick Jackson tear it up. But yeah, it was a great night of high quality talent in a ring that was way overdue. Let's see if that Tokyo Dome ad gets us 6 stars. So on to the 2CW show. Now, 2CW is very well known for being like a super indie around here. They mainly ran in Syracuse, but they also did Watertown and Binghamton. And earlier on in their career, they did feud with Upstate Pro Wrestling. Back then, it was called NWA Upstate. They closed their doors back in 2015, and it was very heartbreaking for a lot of fans to see them close. Mainly because they went out on top, so to speak. It wasn't like it was a dying company and they were just like, okay, we're done with our run. No, it was really well done. Their last show had AJ Styles and the Bucks on it, among other people. It was a huge indie territory at the time. People still to this day talk about it fondly, including guys like Kevin Steen. So to come back for 2 nights only was great. However, like I said before, it got canceled 3 times. This was finally the night that they did it. And unfortunately, so many things happened in regards to talent and people getting signed and so on and so forth, that I'm not sure that the card looked the way it was going to look had they done it a year and a half ago. So let me just quickly run down the card. I'm going to be very quick about this. This was shown on 2CWlive.com, which is like a shot over to their YouTube channel. Now, if you go there right now, the show is still in fact up. So if you want to watch this now is the time to watch it. I can't say how long it's going to stay up there, but it's up there. So check it out if you want. There's a lot of great talent on here, which you'll hear about very shortly. Like, we start off with Ted Goods versus Warhorse. Ted Goods went over. 3-way match, Dalton Castle versus Colin Delaney and Daniel Garcia. That was a great match. Slick Wagner Brown defeats the immortal Too Cold Scorpio. The man's, I can't even tell how old he is. 54, 55, somewhere around there. And he's still doing matches. It's craziness. Brute Van Slyke versus Nick Sullivan. Nick Sullivan's a great up-and-comer. Brute's a mainstay of 2CW throughout the entire run, and he's made a great showing throughout the Northeast. Jay Freddy versus Moose from Impact Wrestling. Moose is also a local guy because he came from Syracuse University. Rachel Ellering went against Kayla Sparks. Then you had a 6-way scramble match with Cheech, Jason Axe, Mike Skyros, Rich Swann, Sean Carr, and Bill Morrissey. Yes, that man from WWE, also known as Big Cass. Alex Shelley versus Davey Richards was an amazing match. Thunder Rosa versus Mercedes Martinez. And then the main event was Dark Order, which was Evil Uno and Stu Grayson versus Cloudy and Nick Ando. With a special unannounced appearance by -1. That actually caught newsreels after the show that he made a special appearance, obviously, because he's going to a place where, once again, Brody Lee was made famous. You know, he was our 2CW champion for many years. He was very well known, obviously, in the upstate New York area. So that's not a surprise that we had to, we had done a lot of a tribute for him. I got a lot of heat for talking about this show in general. One of my biggest, probably my sole complaint, and this goes back to, and I don't even think it's a problem with 2CW per se. 2CW was known for smaller venues. I mean, they ran the Binghamton, Legion Post 76 or Legion Post 80, for years. That could hold maybe 400 people. They used to run the Pastime Athletic Club in Syracuse. And they're famous for being a boxing club as well. But the thing is, there's a lot of history in the places that they ran. So they went for this particular show, they went to the Alien Opera House, which is about a half a mile down the road from the Pastime, mainly because they had sold so many tickets to the show and they couldn't fit in the Pastime. I felt like it wasn't a 2CW show because of that, because of the fact that we went through the card just now. there were quite a few 2CW stalwarts on there, but there were so many that were missing, and so many, very important 2CW mainstays that didn't come for whatever reason. Guys like Spike Dudley, guys like Isis and Zachary Springate and Dick Justice, and all these people that didn't really, for whatever reason, weren't there. And once again, that's not a fault of 2CW per se. That's not a fault of even the talent. Sometimes you move on from this stuff. And I get that. It did feel like that there was something missing from the show, though, in the same respect. Additionally, there was a sense, and I think part of it was the fact that had I gone to the Binghamton show, which was actually in the Legion Post 80 where they were known for, I think I would have had that nostalgia-ish scratched a little bit more, and I wouldn't have had that much of a problem with the show. So one of the other main complaints, and I don't think it's a valid complaint, but I'll voice it anyway, was that the tickets to the show, the general admission tickets they started at $60. I had second row tickets that were $95, and I think the front row were like $120, which is a lot for an indie show. It was a significant amount. But then again, you take a look at the talent on the show and you go, okay, you can see where the money got spent. And of course, they were making a profit, of course. They're still an indie show nonetheless. And that was kind of more of the point, was that it felt like a super indie show, similar to like Wrestling Under the Stars or like a major ESW show or something like that. It didn't feel uniquely 2CW outside of Bombshell Billy being there and Jack Trades being there. But once again, that's a me issue and not a 2CW issue. One of the last things that was a big problem for me personally, now once again, my loving wife came with me to this show, but one of the big reasons why wrestling has been so important, and specifically 2CW has been so important to me, is that it's partially because of, the wrestling show itself here. Fatman and I went to these shows all the time. Professional wrestling was, a big part of our lives before we started the wrestling show. And the reason why we found 2CW was because of doing this show, doing this podcast, and not having Fatman there with me because he was out in Chicago was actually a big detriment to the show itself. I felt kind of out of place, and once again, not like a normal 2CW show. So it's a strange feeling to do that kind of stuff, but once again, like I said, it is what it is. The show itself was great. If you guys haven't had a chance, like I said, go watch it, 2CWlive.com. You can actually go back and watch it from the moment it started. It was live streamed, so what you're watching is a live stream taping of the show. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for that. We're going to do news and rumors probably next week when Fatman comes back, and we'll probably talk about the draft as well. I'm going to throw it back to us from many, many years ago, from the very first 2CW show we covered. It's a little segment we did way back. I think it was episode 23, 24, way back. This was like the first year that we did this. And we talked about 2CW's 99 Problems. 99 Problems was the very first 2CW show that we went to. It had so many different big names that you will in the future know. And then even at that point, there are quite a few, relatively big names even back then. Let me quickly go through the card. it started with a 30-minute Iron Man match, Jason X versus Johnny Gargano. A singles match with Slick Wagner versus Cheech. A 4-way match, Nick Ando versus Adam Pearce. Dalton Castle and Gregory Iron. No holds barred match, Jay Freddy versus some little nobody named Kevin Steen. I don't know where he went. Isis Effects versus Colin Delaney. That was the heavyweight title match. Michael Elgin versus AR Fox. We won't talk about Michael Elgin. Jessica Havoc versus Mickey James. Eddie Edwards and Roderick Strong, who were called the Dojo Bros at that point, versus some random brother tag team called the Young Bucks. I don't know who they are. And then finally the main event, which was a 3-way tag title match, Graham and Brute Van Slyke versus Cage and Shankar versus Ohio is for Killers, aka Eric Shireborn, aka the Chris Brothers. Great match, or great show to go back and watch. I think there somewhere on the internet is a copy of this because it was live streamed at the time. This was way back in 2013, back when live streaming was rare, really, but they were able to knock it out of the park. And somewhere out in the Ethernet, there is a copy of the show. You might be able to find it on like Daily Motion or something. If you can find it, check it out. But otherwise, let's go backwards in time to November 23rd, 2013.
As we promoted to Hell and Back, we promoted the 2CW pay-per-view 99 Problems. And we wanted to talk a little bit about our experiences there, the card itself to an extent, and what happens when you have bookers that don't know how to book. First of all, we got there about 4 o'clock. Bell time was about, 6:30? I don't remember.
Yeah, for the kickoff show match.
The kickoff show, oh my god. But the awesome things about indie shows in general, and if you guys haven't been to an indie show, you really need to take the time, find somebody in your local area, especially if it's somebody that books guys like Steen, Young Bucks, Adam Cole, or anybody who's in like Ring of Honor that does side projects. Adam Pearce, Colt Cabana. There's a whole long laundry list of those guys. Check out those shows. They're really awesome. IWA Mid-South, blah, 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 blah. But we got there about 4 o'clock. We got in there and talked, shot the shit. But most importantly, we got to talk with guys like Adam Pearce, which I'll let Fatman talk about that because he was the one that talked to her.
Oh yeah, I'm NWA guy. He's actually one of the guys that really got me back into the NWA. He's a former 5-time NWA champion, and he's awesome. And he has a new DVD out called 7 Levels of Hate, and it's all about his 7-match series with Colt Cabana over the NWA title. And it's a documentary that on one disc, and the next disc has all 7 matches, and it's just phenomenal. And I talked a little bit about him with him to him, and I've talked about him like, hey, you were the guy that really got me back in the NWA. He goes, yeah, those fucking idiots. And if you get the DVD, you'll understand why he said that, because the NWA pretty much screwed him and Colt Cabana like 3 or 4 times during this whole 7-match series. But he was awesome talking to. We, met Elgin again, who's amazing. We actually spent a lot of time talking to Kevin Steen of the Young Bucks.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun with those guys. I also met Gargano, who was standing there, Gregory Iron.
Eddie Edwards.
The Dojo Bros. Those guys were great. It's amazing to sit here and talk to these guys because, they have such an history. If you think about it, Eddie Edwards and Roderick Strong are the only 2 Ring of Honor Triple Crown winners. There are nobody else. It's those guys. That's it. And to have 2 Triple Crown winners talking to you like, oh yeah, you're just, some other guy, especially if you treat them as such, is just pretty fucking amazing. It really is. You know, sit there and talk with Steen for 15 minutes about bullshit, and talk with Nick and Matt Jackson, or just about anything and everything. You know, it's just pretty awesome. One of the stupid stories that I wrote on Facebook, that was kind of funny, was this little girl came up to ask me, and you know, I'm a big guy. I'm actually bigger than Fatman, if you haven't seen me, which is kind of funny because he's called a Fatman and I'm not. But one of the little girls came with their parents and wanted to take a picture with me because she thought I was one of the wrestlers on the card. And it's obviously I did, and gave them flyers because we promote like fucking hell. That's how we roll. Is Sleazy and the Fatman promote the shit out of the wrestling show. But anyway, but it just reminds me of why we got into wrestling in the first place. Why, you know, at 7 years old, I was watching Ric Flair win the '92 Rumble. Why, when the Fatman was watching the NWA way back when. You know, the thought process behind it. These indie shows are just one other way that, you know, guys can give back and pass on wrestling to another generation. It's one of those things that's always going to actually touch me for a long, long time. And I don't know. It caught me off guard, and it was really a great experience for me personally. I know it doesn't sound like much, but for me it was actually a very big personal thing for me. But I know it sounds like a stupid story recounting it, but it's just the thought process behind it, and it's part of the reason why we do what we do now. You know, talk about wrestling, we critique it, we talk about, you know, indie shows, promote stuff. That's why we're here. That's why we do this, is because 15, 20 years ago, we were that 7-year-old kid meeting, you know, for instance, with Brandon Dietz, one of our staff writers, wrote an article about how he met Andre the Giant, you know, and it's just having those experiences in life, especially when it comes to professional wrestling, where these guys are bigger than life and bigger than, you know, the feelings behind it is just amazing. But that's all I wanted to say about that. On to the actual show. What did you think of the show in general?
I thought it was good. Gargano and what the fuck? Rose was his name?
Jason Axe.
Jason Axe, yeah. I don't know why I fucking said Rose. Oh, yeah, Rose is on his tights.
Yeah.
That's why. That 30-minute Iron Man match was awesome. It was really good. Steen, I don't remember who he faced.
Jay Freddy.
Oh, that's right.
Jay Freddy's a local guy.
He beat the shit out of him.
That was kind of short. I wasn't a huge fan of it because it was such a short match, and it was kind of a weird way to end it.
Oh, yeah. I meant to say Elgin instead of Steen, but I said Steen. I don't know why. But Elgin fucking Fox was match of the night by far. Fucking phenomenal. Dojo Bros and fucking Young Bucks was amazing.
Now you know why I love the Young Bucks.
And the main event was shit.
That was, and that's for my comment beforehand, that was one of the worst booked triple threat tag matches I've ever seen in my life. It was a triple threat tag match. Tables match, yeah, tables match no less. Now it was 2 local teams, and then a third team who is Jake and Dave Christ, who is 2 of the 4 members of OI4K, Ohio's for Killers. By the way, if you're not familiar with Ohio's for Killers, it's Jake and Dave Christ. It's Nevia Christ, who I'm friends with, but the 4th member you don't really hear about because he's no longer in the indies. He is, in that place called WWE as Solomon Crow. But anywho, the match was awful. They started off brawling in the behind us. We were in the second row. They came out of the makeshift locker room brawling. they put one person through the table. It was one half of the tag champions. Nobody said anything. Finally, Jake and Dave Christ come out and work. The second member of the tag champs got put through a table. 5 minutes later, they announce that they're gone, which is kind of dumb. And then Dave Christ goes through a table. The other two guys take the titles and leave.
No, they start a fight with a fan.
Well, they start a fight with a fan too, but in terms of the match,
yeah,
that was pretty much it. It was one of the worst booked matches I've seen in recent memory, and I've seen quite a few shitty indie shows, but that took the cake for just shitty booking. And as Fatman alluded to, one of the champions got into a fucking fight with some of the fans and actually pushed one of the fans. And that wasn't exactly a work either. So, I mean, I don't know. It was bad. It was real bad because it was kind of a sour note to end a pay-per-view that had some really good matches on it. So, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, there really isn't much more to say about it. I mean, I don't know. It's just, it kind of... I'm not saying it didn't sour the night for me because it was such an amazing experience for me personally. I consider it one of my favorite wrestling shows that the Fatman and I have gone to, period. And that's including WrestleMania, that's including, Ring of Honor shows, that's including other WWE shows. In terms of the personal experience I had there, it was one of the best.
And we almost died, too.
Oh, yeah, and we almost died, and even Kevin Steen was like, fuck this shit. But of course, that night, now, we live about 2 hours away from Binghamton where the show was held. So we come up 81 and 90. And we're going maybe 20 miles an hour because it's so fucking bad out. It was constantly snowing. It was slushy. Many, many times it was a suggestion when you wanted to steer and brake. It was very, very bad. It took us 3 times the normal time to get home. Kevin Steen started at like midnight, didn't get home till 9 a.m. the next morning. And he only lives, half hour away from the border in
I don't know.
Quebec.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. He lives right outside Montreal. So, but I mean, it's just the how long or how bad it was that night. It was just fucking horrible. It really was. So.
All right. Thank you, me from the past, many years in the past. But that's pretty much it for the show. As always, my Twitter handle is at TWS Sleazy. Fatman's at TWS Fatman. The show is at Sleazy Fatman on Twitter and Instagram when Instagram actually runs. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/SleazyandFatman. You cannot find us on TikTok yet, but you might. You can find our show and everyone's show at gearnetwork.com. And of course, you can get us every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. on wherever you get your podcasts. So that's pretty much it. So for Sleazy, this is The Wrestling Show. Thank you guys so much for listening. Peace. I'm not doing his outro.
I'm a truth that you seem to run from. I'm an army of one. I'm a clip in your gun. I'm the pain of the game. The blood shedding your name. When there's nothing to gain, I'm a well-known sad.
preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.